Hi, men. It's good to be with you, or at least with you digitally, right? My name is Stephen Kreuter. I am one of the leaders in the Hillsboro location, Hillsboro, Missouri. So just south of St. Louis, about 45 minutes or so. Come and visit. I'd love to have you guys. It'd be great to see any of you guys join us. I feel privileged and honored to have the opportunity to be able to speak to you guys today. This truly is just an opportunity that is not just something that I just want to take for granted, but something that to be able to speak into the lives of not just anybody, but to be able to speak into the men of Kindred House is a true privilege and a true honor. And I don't take that lightly because you guys are a group of men who want to know God. You want to know His ways, and you want to follow Him. And anybody who is in that boat, anybody who is one who wants to know Him and wants to follow Him, I feel a great honor and great privilege to be able to speak into your life, because it's a great honor to know and to be able to call you guys brothers. And I realize some of you are probably leaders. Some of you probably aren't leaders. Some of you are here because somebody asked you to come. A friend maybe convinced you. Some of you are maybe wanting to take your faith more seriously. Some of you are just wondering, what does it look like to be a man? What does this mean? And interested in watching a men's video. And there's probably even some of you who are just watching it just because it's what other people are doing, or you feel like it's what you should be doing. But not wherever we fall on the spectrum, wherever you are, my hope is that you will get to see and you will begin to understand the call that God has on each of our lives as men, who He has called us to be. That each men and women, both of us, have a beautiful call and responsibility to carry into this world, that we were together created as the image of God, to image Him forth into all of creation, to bring His life to every corner of the earth. And so one of the unique ways that God created men is that we are made as men to bear seed, to deposit, to plant, to sow. Women are those who receive, they nurture, they take and bring life and animation to that which was sown, and they glorify the work that the man started. The woman brings glory to. There's this mutually complementary nature to both men and women, that together they are designed to share in this beautiful fruitfulness into this world. So this can be taken as biology alone, but it's more than just biology, because we live in a physical and a spiritual world that are they're overlaid, intertwined, interconnected per se, and that we ourselves we're not just physical beings, but we are also spiritual beings at the same time. So not merely because of biology, but because of the design of God, men are made to be sowers. That's part of who we are, that we are seed bearers, depositors, planters, and this is not accidental. This is how we were made to function from the very beginning. Men are called to sow, to plant things we may never fully see grown in our own lifetime. We're called to be those who deposit our lives, oftentimes for another generation, that another generation might bear fruit and have that life in them as well. And all of us, we all have the opportunity and we all have the ability to produce seed of all different kinds. And my hope for you, for me, for all of us, that our desire is to bear fruit that lasts, bear fruit that remains, that endures into the new creation. That we aren't just those who are just sowing, but that what we want to do is we want to be those who are bearing fruit all the way through, that will endure and last throughout this creation into the new creation, which means that we ourselves, we want to bear the fruit of the Spirit, because we know that is lasting fruit. That's the fruit that will endure forever. So as men, as those who sow seed, it is easy for us to sow whatever it is that we want, whatever we think is good. But the hope and the design is that we are those who sow and deposit that which is truly of and from the Lord, that is from God Himself, so that seed might produce fruit in every single season, that it's His fruit that produces fruit in every single season. I want us to think just for a moment about the story of Abraham, that God promises, he makes a promise to Abraham, right? That God promises to Abraham that He will make him a great nation, a great people, that all of the families of the earth shall be blessed through him. And a few stories later, God comes back to Abraham and He says, "Don't fear." And Abraham himself, he's not super happy with God at this moment. He says to the Lord, "What will you give me? For I continue to be childless. My heir, my relative is my heir, not my son." And so in this moment, there's been a promise that has been given. Abraham is waiting to see the fulfillment. God comes back to him, and Abraham's like, "Where is the fruition of this? Where is the keeping of your promise, Lord?" And I'm not happy, because right now the promise that came looks like it's only going to be fulfilled through a relative. And I want you to help me understand this. What's going on here? And so the Lord Himself takes Abraham outside, and He says, "Look up. Let me show you the stars of the heavens. Let me show you the sand of the earth." And He says that to Abraham, He says, "Your descendants will outnumber these. They will outnumber the stars. They will outnumber the grains of sand in the earth. And from your seed, all the nations will be blessed." And in a sense, He's saying, "Abraham, I called you to sow seed, both physically, but also spiritually. From your loins, from your seed, the blessing of the nations will come." But this is more. It is physical, but it's more than just physical. This seed that will bring life, that will bring. It will bring life to a broken world. It will bring joy and peace and wholeness and rightness. And it's not just it's obviously Jesus. Jesus is that seed that He's the joy everlasting throughout the ages. And that's the promise, that there is this seed that will be deposited into the earth that will bring life and life abundantly. And that's the promise that has come to Abraham. A promise that redeems that which is dead and buried, that which brings life and life abundantly to God's people, and also through God's people. That it's not just life and life abundantly to us, but it's life and life abundantly to us and then through us into this world, that all of the nations might be blessed. Well, the question is, right, how does this happen? How does this take place? And there's this process in nature that for an acorn to bear fruit, it must be planted. It must be sown first. It has to be put into the ground, and what was an acorn is no longer an acorn. It has to be changed. It has to be matured. There has to be a transformation of what was into what now is no longer an acorn, but is now an oak tree. It has grown. It has matured. It has developed. It has been sown so that life might come through it. In a sense, the acorn, it gave its life, right? It gave its life, but in the giving of its life, never has it been more alive than now. Once it has given its life, and the life that comes up and out of the acorn into an oak tree, never has this acorn been more alive than it is now after being sown. And now one seed can turn into many. This is a natural process. We see this throughout creation. But we also see this spiritually when Jesus himself, he says about himself that a seed, unless it falls to the ground and dies, it doesn't bear fruit. Like it must fall to the ground. It must die. It must remain alone, so that if it dies, then it will bear much fruit. And that's the design. That's the way it works. There's this expectation of seed sowing, dying, much fruit, and we often want to shortchange that middle part of the dying part because it's not near as exciting, right? It can be the trickier, more difficult part. And this is true for us. The call for us as men is to be sowers, and it's not just a call; it's the design, it's the function, it's who we are. We are sowers, but we are to be those who give ourselves, not just for ourselves. Not just so that we can reap a harvest and be happy about whatever our storehouses are, but that we sow for the sake and the life of another, for others, so that we give our lives, we sow our lives, so that others can receive that life and bear fruit as well. And this is the turning point for us as men. It's in a sense it's the way that it's the turning point for Abraham. That God says, "Hey, I didn't ask you just to believe a promise. That wasn't the point. Was just to believe a promise. The point was to entrust your life to the one who is the promise maker and the promise keeper. That we actually give our lives over to Him to say, all right. Not only is there a promise that we are seed sowers, that's who you design us to be, but we give our lives over so that the seed that we sow would be your seed." And I trust you, Lord, to work that into me, that my seed that comes out is good seed. It's the seed of your spirit. It's the seed of your life into those around us. And the less fun part is that for us to be seed sowers ourselves, we must first give our lives up to the true sower. That we must entrust our life to the sower and willingly, daily allow our own life to be sown. Seed in any form, in any context, must be released. It must be sown. It must not be held onto and protected, but it must be given for fruitfulness to come. It must be given for the sake and life of another. And the moment a seed is sown, it no longer exists for itself. That's biology by itself, that when a seed is sown, it no longer is for itself. But how much more that dynamic in the spiritual sense of when we give ourselves to the Lord, we no longer live for ourselves, but it's Christ who lives through us. And something in that, something greater begins to live through us. It's His life. It's no longer ours. And the seed that we sow is now His. That acorn that was always meant to be something more, the acorn that was always just a seed, now has life flowing through it in a new way, in a way that it's not an acorn, but it's an oak tree. And that's the call for us, is to lay our lives down so that we might grow up into what He's always called us to be. And this is Paul's what his point, what he reaches in his life is that he realizes that fruitfulness doesn't come from trying harder. It doesn't come from protecting your life or trying to improve upon the seed, but it comes when a life is laid down. It comes so that new life might come through him. And so when Paul is speaking in his letters, and he speaks this not just in metaphor, not in poetry, but as a life-lived experience, it with confidence that this is the reality. Not a joke, not metaphor, not poetry, not something that we're just like, oh, that sounds nice. That's a good phrase, Paul. I like that. But it's the reality of his life when he says, "It is no longer I who live. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me." And then again, a little while later, he says, "All I want to know is Christ. All I want is to know Christ in the power of his resurrection, in the fellowship of his sufferings, and I want to becoming like him in his death. So Paul's like, all I want to do is know Christ. I want to know him in the power of his resurrection. I want to know him in the fellowship of his sufferings, and I want to become like him in his death. That is the reality that he sees. That's the reality that he experiences, and it's the reality that we're called to, and it's a reality that Paul pursues and desires and longs for, because he realizes that resurrection life, resurrection power, only flows through a life that has first been laid down and surrendered. That resurrection power doesn't come through, like the acorn can't have the life come through it without being laid down. And the same is true for our lives, that the resurrection power, the resurrection life, for it to flow through us, into us, and then through us, our life has to be laid down and surrendered for him and his life to grow, that we might mature and grow up into what we're called to be. And in this, I want to pause kind of just briefly and kind of go, we're designed as men to sow seed. That's the plan. That's the goal. That's the design. But if we sow seed apart from his spirit, apart from our lives being laid down, apart from him, the seed that we sow is us. The seed that we sow is our own fruitfulness, whatever that means, whatever that looks like, and it's not fruit that will endure. It's not fruit that will last. But the point and the goal is that we lay down our lives so that there's actually fruitfulness that is born through us through his work, and this is why Jesus, when he's speaking, he says to his disciples, you must deny yourself. You must deny yourself and take up your cross daily and follow me. That's the reality, is that we deny ourselves. We take up our cross daily and follow him, because we don't want that fruit coming out of us. We want the fruit of his spirit. We want his life, not our own fruit, not our own ways, not our own things, not the things that we think are good, but that we are called to lay down our lives daily, take up our cross daily and follow him, so that his life might come through us. And you read Paul, and Paul's like, I die every day. Every day I take up my cross. Every day I die. I give up myself for the sake of him who has called me. That we are called to be living sacrifices. That's the plan. That's what we're designed for. That's when we are most fulfilling what we're designed for, is we're giving up ourselves to be filled with him, to allow his life into us. And this is what is referred to as believing loyalty, not just a one-time thing, but that every day is a life laid down and surrender, that I continually am living this life, one of giving myself to him and going, Lord, fill me. Lord, fill me with your presence. Show me your way. Teach me how to live. Let me be led by your spirit. Let me be filled with your spirit daily, that it is you that comes out of me. And that we join in the same things that when Jesus says in the garden, he says, not my will, but yours be done, Father. That becomes the truth of our lives, that it's not my will, but yours be done. And that we join in the same thing that where Paul says, it's no longer I who live, but that becomes true of us, that we say, not my will, but yours be done, that it may no longer be I who live, but Christ who lives within me. And that's our hope. That's our call, to be men who are sowing, but to be men who aren't just sowing ourselves, but are sowing Christ wherever we go. Scripture is super consistent. It says that seed produces after its own kind. So a thistle can't produce raspberries. It's impossible. That's not the way it works. Even though they both have thorns, you can't have a thistle producing raspberries. You can't have an apple tree producing cherries, even though they're both good fruit. It's not how it works. Seed produces after its own kind. And this is in Matthew 7, Jesus says, a good tree cannot produce bad fruit. So we can't sow the flesh and expect the Spirit's fruit. That's incongruent with how seed works. We can't sow one thing and expect something different. We can't plant pride and hope to reap humility. We can't cultivate self and expect some form of Christ-likeness to come up out of that. It's what we sow is what we should expect to get. And so the hope is that we are those who are bearing the fruit of the Spirit, so that we are sowing the fruit of the Spirit. And we know that instead of sowing pride, instead of sowing jealousy, that we are called to sow the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. If we want to sow the fruit of the Spirit, we must be surrendered to Him. And allow, we must be surrendered, yielding, allowing the flow of His Spirit to be changing even the direction of our lives, that we are submitted to His will, abiding with Him, because we know that apart from Him, we can't do anything. That it's only through His grace, it's only through His goodness that brings that life into us. It's only through Him, through His Spirit, that allows that to take place. And in it, our role becomes one of yielding, and not just yielding, but partnering with Him, with the work that the Spirit is doing to transform us, the work that He is doing to lead us. That we are, He is willing and able and actually leading us, but that we need to submit and go, I want to follow. I want to follow your leading, and yielding to that refining work that's taking place, allowing His character to be formed, transformed in us, to produce in our lives seed that endures, seed that lasts, seed that remains, and seed that is worth planting. Because we don't want to plant seed that's not worth planting. The seed that we want is good seed. We want to be planting good seed. And so I want to take a moment to kind of transition from the idea of you and I as seeds in our own lives that are being laid down, and that's crucial. That's important. But I want to kind of jump into the idea of that's already the reality, that our lives are laid down. We are now that acorn that has been laid down, and life is coming up through it. And so instead of just looking at us as individuals as seed, but I want to look at what does that mean then for us to be bearing His fruit, for us to be then sowing of the fruit of the Spirit. So let's go back to the very beginning. At the beginning, I mentioned that there's something biological and yet also spiritual in the design of us as men. And this is true in us in regards to fatherhood. So we know biologically fathers sow seed and children are born. But that's not just a biological thing, it's also spiritual. And so we all have the opportunity to sow seed and to father that which is born from that which was sown. So if you aren't a biological father, that doesn't change anything. You are still one who sows, and you're still one who fathers those around you, or those places that you have put seed. Paul, in his writings, puts it this way. He says, I became your father in Christ through the gospel, that I sowed into you. I put myself forward. I laid myself down, and by laying myself down in the same way that Christ did, in the same way that I sowed myself into you, by doing that, there's something of fathering that takes place. So he doesn't say, I came and oppressed you. I came and dominated or controlled you. But I came and I gave my life in Christ. I sowed myself into you. And that's what fathers do. Fathers, they give themselves so that another life, others apart from them, can grow and mature and be established and bear fruit themselves. So So this is our call, whether you're a biological father or whether you aren't, that we are, there's a role of that sowing, and there's a role of that fatherhood that actually takes place and comes out of us, that we are to be giving our lives to other people. We look first to sow to those who the Lord has placed around us. We want to make sure that we're aligning our lives with where God has us, and who is it that has surrounded us. And a first place to start is the family. So this is where it all begins. This is the family is the first basic building block of the church. It's why there's the expectations, qualifications, responsibilities of the elders who are those who are the fathers of the house, the fathers of the congregation, the fathers of that individual church, that they are called to be those who manage their houses, their household, and their families well. That this is the first test and expectation. That are you sowing in your own field well? That fathers first. That as fathers, that they first take responsibility of their own house, that they first take responsibility of sowing and nurturing and establishing what's going on there, that they don't neglect that first field, but that they sow, they serve, and they give sacrificially in the same way that Christ gave himself up for us. And then from there, outside of family, we begin to look and go, all right, Lord, who else have you surrounded me with? Is this people at work? Are there connections with people at work that I can sow into? Are there connections with people at a local coffee shop, or I regularly go to this gas station, I'm always interacting with this person, or grocery store, people who we regularly hang out with or play games with, or have families over, or whatever it is, whoever these people are, whatever people the Lord has surrounded you with, there's something of us that we're to be sowing into them. And I do think it's important that we look and go, all right, I see these people. These are the people that I can begin to sow into. But I also think it's super important that we ask the Lord, who is it that you're leading me to? Not like I think we should just be sowing. I think we should be sowing into whoever we connect with. But that sometimes there's people that we sow a little bit more regularly into. That there's people that we sow a little bit more intentionally into. And so I want to encourage you to take some time and pray and just ask the Lord, who is it? Who do you have for me? Is it this friend at work? Is it this person at the coffee store, or wherever it is that you begin to ask the Lord, who is it that you have for me, and who am I to be investing in a little bit more intentionally, and allow Him to be leading, not you, but allow Him to be leading your life. And then once we start sowing, there's a struggle, and I don't want to deny the struggle, because there's something of there's something first of there was a struggle of laying my life down daily. That's a first struggle, but then there's a struggle of when we begin to sow, that we then want to have some form of an expectation of fruitfulness that comes from that. Like, that's part of the point of sowing. And I don't want to deny that there's something to that, but I also want to acknowledge that even the true sower sowed seeds that landed on the path, on hard ground, on dry ground, on rocky ground, that was choked out by weeds and thorns, and that we need to be careful not to try to take too much of our identity from that fruitfulness or lack thereof, because even Jesus himself in his sowing, it's like, yeah, some fell on rocky soil, some fell amongst the thorny places, and I do think that there's a time that we can kind of help in maybe pulling up some of those weeds in people's lives, or removing certain rocks, when led by the Spirit to do so. But it is first and foremost and truly the work of the Spirit that is at work in the heart and soil of somebody's life. And when he leads us to be a partner and a help and one who partakes of doing some of that work along with him, that's great. But we need to make sure that we aren't those who are running ahead of him and going, oh, I see this rocky soil, I need to deal with this. But that we are allowing the Spirit to be the one who is at play, and trusting that as we pray, as we sow regularly, and then we allow the Word of God and His Spirit to be the ones who are actually doing the work on the life of those who we're sowing into, and trusting that the seed we're sowing is good seed, and that he will be doing the work to make it come to fruition, and preparing the soil. And I realize, like, as men, and maybe for myself, and like I don't want to speak for you, but I can speak for myself in this, that as a man, that it's easy to try to want to fix something, to try to be the one who wants to do this, and the idea of the time that it takes to change and to sow in prayer can feel too slow at times. But it's interesting to me that one of the things that I found is that prayer is potentially the biggest and undervalued component in my life. And don't hear me wrong. Like, I do pray, and I pray regularly, and I pray a decent amount. But at the same time, the expectation of what those prayers are, the expectation of what I'm actually praying for, and the answers, and then I'm giving the burden to the Lord and not carrying it myself. I think that there's something of this of sowing in prayer that I am learning, that I'm going, I just need to take it to the Lord. Just need to take this to the Lord. That there are situations, that there are conversations that have taken place that I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to fix this thing, or I don't know how I'm going to fix this situation or this conversation, or help change the person's mind in this, or whatever it is. But that as I've learned to take these things to the Lord, and I go, Lord, I don't know what to do in this conversation. I don't know what to do in this situation. I don't know what to do to help change the mind of this person. I don't know what to do in X, Y, and Z thing. And I take it to the Lord, and I pray, Lord, I ask that you would change it. I ask that you would transform this. I ask in these particular things, in this particular situation, that this would happen. And I give it to the Lord, and I don't take it back. That's key. It's easy to want to take that burden back on, but then I'm actually giving the burden to the Lord, going, this is yours. It's your responsibility. I need you to work up the soil of this situation and make it fruitful for the planting. And one of the things that I found is that if I give it to Him, and I don't take it back, if I don't try to take the burden back on myself, but if I just give it to Him, that situation or the conversation or the person or whatever that I begin to have, interacting with somebody that I prayed for, a situation, and all of a sudden the words that I prayed to the Lord begin to come back to me through this person, through this conversation. And it's only by the work of the Spirit. It's only by His work. And I'm just like, what am I doing taking so much time trying to figure out how to make these things come together when I can just give it to Him and go, you know better. You know how to do this. You know how to make this take place. May you do the work. May I give this burden to you. May I allow you to do this on my behalf, for yourself, for your glory in this situation. And as I've learned to give these things to Him, I've seen the fruitfulness of His work taking place just from me praying, just from me going, Lord, this is yours, not mine. And that He changes those situations time and time again. And I realize, at least for myself, it's hard for me as a man, maybe for you as well, that I like to be an action-forward kind of a person. I want to see those quick results. I don't want to be sitting around waiting. But the way of the sower, the way of us, the way that we're men, and we are called to sow. And there's the way of the sower is actually something that's slow. And it's rooted in faithfulness. And so it's like this complex thing of us as men wanting to move things forward quickly and be action-oriented, but also in our nature that we're actually designed to learn faithfulness. We're designed to sow those seeds and allow that to fall into the Lord's hands, and not think that our action is what's going to make this happen, but it's the Lord's action that makes it happen. and that we as sowers are to be steady, peaceful servants that do not grow weary in the waiting, that we don't grow weary in the sowing, that we are steady, peaceful servants that go, I'll just continue on. I will be faithful to continue to sow into those around me, whether I see the fruitfulness or not, and that I trust the Lord and I take it to him in prayer. So my hope, my prayer for you today is that you yourself would be willing and able to embrace that slowness in sowing, that the quiet, unfruitful moments, the unseen sacrifices, all of those things, that you would be willing to embrace that, and that when we realize and when we experience that faithfulness of our sowing into children, whether that's biological or spiritual, and we don't see the fruitfulness for years, or we sow into other young men and they walk away, or you sow righteously at work and you're mistreated, that we would be those who trust the Lord, that we'd be those who go, you know what? I give this over to you, Lord. I offer this as a sacrifice to you for the work of your kingdom in my life, but also into this world. And I trust you. I trust you, Lord, to be at work in this, and that I will not take my identity just from these things, but I will be faithful to sow, and I'll be faithful to pour into the lives of those around me. When Paul writes, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time, at the right time, at due season, you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. And that's the key part, is don't grow weary in doing good. In the due season, in the right time, in harvest season, you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. And so I want to encourage you, don't give up, because weariness comes when we forget who provides the growth. Weariness, tiredness, this exhaustion comes when we think that we're in charge of the growth, when we think we're the ones who are supposed to be making these things take place. But when we realize that faithfulness is learning to sow without demanding the harvest on our own timeline, then we'll actually begin to be those who are settled, those who are walking in his way, who are peaceful people, who are bearing fruit in ways that are unexpected, because we're no longer striving. We've given it to him, and that in our faithfulness, we're no longer demanding that it comes to harvest time now. It's not in our timeline. It's in the Lord's timeline. So as you move forward in your day today, or in your week, or wherever you are, remember that you are a faithful sower. That when you speak, when you care for someone, when you serve, when you pray for, whatever it is, that you are one who is sowing faithfully, and that your job is not to control the harvest, but your role is to decide to sow. Your role is to be willing to yield to the Spirit and sow his fruit into all of these circumstances. So I ask that you'd be those. My prayer actually is for you, that you'd be those who trust the Lord. Trust him, that you don't grow weary, that you keep on sowing, and believing and knowing that the Lord himself is faithful to bring the increase. Not you, it's him. Trust him, don't grow weary, continue to sow. He is the one who's faithful to bring the increase. Love you guys. Have a blessed rest of your day. See ya. Bye.